Great. Well, thank you for joining everyone today for this session on resumes and brag books that will be presented by Sandy Hild. Sandy is the resume doctor and career coach and located in Houston, Texas. Sandy, if you'd like to get started.
Sure. I think to start off, to tell you a little bit about myself and explain how this process of selling myself began through the development of my own resume and brag book. It was 1985. That was a big year for me. I left Maryland Public Television to come to Houston to learn the resume business. And in 1991, I broke off from a national group and formed my own company. That took a great leap of faith, but I never doubted myself. I've always been the type of person who came in early. I worked late. I put in a lot of effort to make sure I got the job done right. So I was never like an average employee. I excelled at what I did. That was my motivation. And I think that's what we take most for granted. We assume that we're like everyone else when actually we're not. I find that there's probably about 15% of a company where the people really excel. The majority of people are actually just there to do a job, earn their paycheck, go home, and not worry about it. And then you've got that percentage of people who aren't really good at what they do and really should be fired. So how do we, the people who excel, how are we going to make sure that we get credit? I think I was destined to do this work because I look back at the resume I prepared back in the 70s, and I was working for health and mental hygiene at that time. And I look at it, and the front of it was a job description resume because, that's what we did back then. But on the back of it, I had a listing of all the committees I was on, what we were mandated to do, what we actually accomplished, and how it changed the business that we did. That was unusual for back in that time frame. When I moved to Maryland Public Television, I had to continue to refine my resume, and I had to keep track of those contributions. I'm not the most organized person in the world. I know in the concierge business you have to be organized. But I'm more of a writer. I use a different side of my brain probably than you do. And so I like to create binders. I find that file folders for me they get put away and they get lost. And when I had 3-ring binders around me, I could pull from them very easily to have the information accessible. So I would have a 3-ring binder on my membership drives and how much money we brought in and so forth, the spreadsheets that I created. If it was in person with Rick Breitenfeld, I would have a 3-ring binder for that program and the press releases that I wrote and then the clippings from all the publications that actually carried that information. So one day this light bulb went off in my head, and I said, okay, if I have to talk about myself better in my resume, maybe I need to create my own 3-ring binder. And I also have an art background. So in art, an artist never goes in and talks about their artwork without actually having a portfolio. So the two sort of combined, and that's how a brag book for me came about. I knew I had to actually have that information with me in order to better understand myself and therefore better promote myself. I'm becoming a product. And so I track statistics and information about our membership drives. I was there at Maryland Public Television for 7 years. So then in 1985, when I moved to Houston and started in the resume business, I continued to teach people that they cannot take themselves for granted. Their resumes cannot be job descriptions. They have to be able to sell themselves. They have to talk about the contributions they make and how they change an organization. Because if you're just doing a job description type resume, you become a doer, not an achiever. So when I was teaching my people, when I was writing their resumes, it was all about changing their attitude. So that's where we moved to page 2, attitude adjustment and staying competitive. Why is this important? I think no matter what we do, we're in sales. Why is that? Because we have to become our own marketing department. We're in highly competitive roles. I mean, think about when a job posting goes on the internet. They'll get hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants for one position. How do you rise to the top of the list? If you're just talking about yourself like a job description, those job postings that you see, that's going to make you look average. It's going to make you look like everybody else. You're going to be just like the person you replaced and the person who comes in and replaces you. That to me is a death sentence. Employers want to hire the people who excel. So, why is it when we're growing up that we're taught to brag about ourselves is not a good thing?